So what we're going to do is go over what's called equating like coefficients. Basically what you're doing is you're setting the terms of a function. And what we mean by a term is this. Each of these are a term. So we're going to set the terms of each part of a function equal to another part. And so in this case, if I look, the x squared term on the left side, there's only one of them, and it's here. And then the x squared on the right side is here. Notice there's no other x squared term. So therefore, here's the puzzle. If this is 4x squared, and this is ax squared, and the quadratic on the left is supposed to be equal to the quadratic on the right, what is the value of a? Well, a should be 4. And the same question pertains here. What about the term with the x? 5x, that has to be the same as bx, so therefore b has to be 5. And finally, notice this minus 7 or negative 7. There's no other term associated with that. It's all by itself. And so that's our constant term. So our constant term in this case is going to be equal to the other constant term, which is c. So therefore, c is negative 7. So that right there will reveal our answer as a is 4, b is 5, and c is negative 7. Now, the puzzle gets a little bit more tricky when it gets a little more complicated. So you'll see the answer right there, but I'm going to hide it. So let's say it's this quadratic. And they're asking what are the values of a, b, and c. So again, looking at it, I need to associate the x squared term, the x term, and the constant term, and set them equal to each other. So for this one, notice it might work out better if you just kind of distribute things first. For this particular one, you don't always have to, but notice there's my x term, and by doing that, that'll help me later on. Here I can distribute the x squared to each one, but I do notice that this is a minus c. That's my leading coefficient, and this is 4, so I know that right here this is my x squared term. So 4 has to equal a minus c. So then I will just write it here. I won't go any further. Just hold on for a minute. Now let's go to my x term. Notice there's bx. My coefficient is b. So therefore I can set this bx equal to this 4x. So this again is my x term. And you can see that my b is going to be 4. I'm just dropping these x's because we're concerned about the leading coefficient. So in this case, b is going to be equal to 4. Not sure why it says x. It should be b. Sorry, guys. And now finally, I need my constant term, which you can see here. My constant term on the left side is this entire thing, negative b plus 6. And the reason is that there's no x value next to it. So those are all going to be my constants, which means this c right here is going to be equal to negative b plus 6. So now if I set this up correctly, you should see this here, b is 4, and this here. So now this is where the puzzle resembles something that we've done before, because now the question is I need to solve for a, b, and c. Well, good news, I already know what b is. So since I know what b is, what could I do with it? Well, I could plug it into here, which gives me my negative 8. Negative 8 plus 6 is negative 2. So c is negative 2. So now I know what c equals. I can use that and plug it back into this original one over here. And I can have a plus 2, because negative is positive. And then solve, and voila, I have a equals 2, b is 4, and c is negative 2. So that worked out really nicely because I knew what b was. Let's say I didn't know what b was, then I would have to set up a system of equations to solve. And that's kind of it, really. So we're just equating the coefficients. The x squared is the x, and the constants. If we have a x cubed term, we'll do the same thing. But that's kind of the general idea. So you may need to be using your systems of equations here. So what I want to do is just to give you an idea, so that way it's not overly complicated. Let's see if I can get this to be where I want it to be. Excuse me. Let's go here. Yeah. If it'll load. There we go. Alright, hope it loads. There we go. So what I would like to do is do the first one with you, just to give you a chance to see a more complicated version. So this is the first problem on your homework. Again, the instructions are finding values of A, B, C, and D. And there you have it. And if I look at it, I would be scared too. So let's do this together, and then we'll move on. So looking at it, again, you're just setting we're trying to set the coefficients equal to each other. So if I look on the left side, again, this entire thing is on the left side. If I look at that, I see I have x squared. Here's another x squared on the left. So really I have 2x squared. So I'm going to write 2x squared there, and then I'll look on the right. And I'll see I have 1x squared term there, and nothing over there. So therefore I know that 2x squared is going to have to equal 6x squared. Or in other words, these coefficients have to be the same, so C has to equal 2. Okay? So that worked out fairly nicely. I'll change colors. Now I'm going to go to the x term. So if I look here, here's an ax. I see I have a minus 2bx. So I'm just going to write here ax minus 2bx. And those are my x terms on the left. I'll go over to the right, and I'll see there's this subtracting 7 or negative 7. So these two leading coefficients, a and subtracted by 2b, is going to have to equal negative 7x. So since we're looking at the coefficients, this is really a minus 2b. Those coefficients there, if I combine them, have to equal negative 7. Okay, and I can't do anything there. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to keep going. So now I go to the next. I'm looking for the constant term. So if I look here, I have 2b. And I have 3a, and I know those are constants because they have no x next to them. So right over here in purple, 2b plus 3a has to equal the constant over here, which is 3. And so now, here's where I'm going to need to use a system of equations, because I have two unknowns. I have b and a here, and b, or a and b here. So since I have two unknown variables, for both of those, this is where I'm going to use my systems of equations concept and solve for it. So I'm just going to rewrite it just a little bit so that way you can see that I can just add these together to eliminate. So now if I add these together, I get 4a equal to, is that negative 4? Yep. And then if I divide by 4, a equals negative 1. Well, if a is equal to negative 1, I can just plug that back into here or the other one. Doesn't necessarily matter. And so I'm going to plug it into this one here. So that would be 2b minus 3 now equal to 3. Add 3 over. 2b equals 6. B is equal to 3. So my final answer here is a equals negative 1. B is equal to 3. Well, let me write it correctly rather than saying that. A is equal to negative 1, B is going to equal to 3, and C is equal to 2. And there is my solution. So again, it's basically a systems of equations. And this skill is useful when you get into calculus because you'll do something like this. So in a way, we're trying to get you ready for pre-calc so that we can use it then. But that's really where you would use this skill. We're just equating coefficients. So just as a quick glance through, I just want to point a few things, like number 6, for example. Just to give you a head start with that one, please take note that you have an x cubed term here, x cubed. So that means I set the x cubed term on the right equal to it. And if you look right away, you don't see an x cubed term. However, if you were to multiply this part out right here, then you're going to get the x cubed term. So notice if I multiply here to there, I get c times 1, which is a c, x times x squared, which is x cubed, and then I'll just distribute from here. Okay, that would be 4cx, this would be dx squared, and this would be 4d. And so now I will do a similar process here, like I did in number 1. But this time I would set the, again, x cubes together, so I'm just going to underline this one and this one. I know that those have to equal, so I'll write up here 3x cubed has to equal cx cubed. And that's the only thing I could set equal to each other. So c would have to be 3. And then I kind of go through and do the same thing. Here's dx squared. I set that equal to x squared here, and so on. So that's really it. You're setting you're setting coefficients of each term equal to each other and solving. And most of the time, it's going to turn into systems of equations. And that's basically it. So hopefully that made sense. I apologize for not being there, but I want to give you something that isn't totally overwhelming, but at the same time is a little new. So with that said, best of luck. The solutions are on Google Classroom. Give it a try, and then if not, then we can talk about it when I come back. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.